Let's get out of here. Starting to give me the creeps in here. Why is that? Will you just get the hell out of here? He started moving on her at once. They could see his pale ass cheeks rising and falling, then quicker, and then beginning to pound, and after a brief time, he shouted something wild and unintelligible, as if he were in pain, crying some kind of words into her neck, and he jerked and shivered, and then he stopped. Hey, he said again. Charlene? What? You're good. Well, you're not.
From far beyond sanity, in the soul of Denver, Colorado, the Cannabis Community Project presents 424 Play, the sexual journey of Becca B-Trip.
Girl, it's not about you, 'cause I can find another and love me just like
Okay. Anyways, so one segment of Beyond Sanity is going to be 424 Play.
Okay.
Which is my journey, or I guess my sexual journey.
Right.
So, and I'm emotional already today, so.
Yeah, what's going on?
I don't know. PMS.
Yeah.
I'm sure. It's always, but each month is a little different because I think I'm learning how to handle it better.
Right. That's good.
So, Tara was just asking me who I was, and it just struck a nerve with me because I guess that's what I've been trying to figure out.
Right.
And I said, I know I'm a mother of 4 children.
Right.
And I'm trying to do my best by. And I said, that's all I know.
Right. If somebody asked me the question of who I am, I would answer that question more in the realm of who I am as a possibility. Because stating who I am based on the labels or who I have been or what I have done is a very different thing than who I am in this moment, which is a choice all the time.
Yeah. And it's been a year for me.
Wow.
I met you 4 months into this big step I took last year.
Right.
So you came at a critical time in my life.
Right.
And so that's why I wanted you to be one of my first guests.
Oh, cool. I'm honored.
I'll try to get my emotions together.
Yeah.
I know you're used to them. I guess I see you as a mentor. When I met you and we did that podcast, you have a podcast. So things I want to talk about today.
Okay.
Your podcast.
Okay.
Which is Radical Intimacy.
Right.
I want to know, how that came about, what you do, what your focus is.
Right.
Things I learned when I met you.
Right.
When you said intimacy is how far into me you see.
Right.
That really struck a chord with me.
Did it really? Oh,
yeah,
cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And your book. I want to talk about your book.
Okay.
And if you're comfortable, because this is going to be for the 424 Play segment of my show.
Right.
So that way people are uncomfortable with this subject don't have to listen, because it can be uncomfortable for people, and I don't want anybody to be uncomfortable. But know that this is something that I do talk about, so it's a comfortable place if people want to listen.
Right. Okay.
Or explore, right?
Right.
And then talk about your kind of journey with the lifestyle as well.
Okay.
And then we'll just see where it goes from there.
Okay.
And we're just going to talk.
Okay. I can do that.
Okay. And then we can talk about this other when we're done, maybe.
Okay.
Because I like what you're saying there on who am I?
Right.
That's a big question.
Right.
Yeah.
It could be a question you can ask yourself every day.
Yeah.
Because we have a tendency to answer that question based on labels of how we fit in. But that when I think about who I am, the way I would describe who I am is the possibility of full authentic expression in each moment, because that's my goal in life.
Yes. So this is a good segue. So
Okay.
why don't we do an introduction of yourself?
Okay.
So tell us who you are and maybe your background, or however you want to give your background information for this audience.
Okay. Well, let me ask this question. So how would you describe the audience?
So my health coaching that I've been working on, the thing that is the 5 areas of our life, the 5 big areas of life they categorize is health, love, relationships, career, and connection with something greater than self.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, that works.
And if you're out of balance or in one area of life, you're probably unbalanced in another area of your life, because how you do one thing in one area is how you do something. That's how you do everything.
Right.
So for me, my journey over the last 2.5 years has been almost looking at everything again. Like, what is happening in my life over and over again, right? What's the definition of insanity?
Right. Yep.
Doing the same thing over and over again, getting expect the exact same result.
Right.
Or a different result.
Right.
Whatever. And I feel like I've been doing that. It's like I've been picking what I think is the sane choice.
Right.
And getting the same result.
Right.
And so for me, beyond sanity is stop listening and start listening to me and stop listening to what should be. What should I be doing? Who should I be? Should I?
Right. Yep.
Just stop the chatter and start listening to myself.
Right.
And those could be some really radical things.
Right. Yep.
And so for me, cannabis was hugely radical. But I sit here today, a different woman, transformed, because I was able to keep moving outside of my comfort zone.
Right.
When I so wanted to go back. And that's probably like where I sit today is some days I just want to scream, go back to what feels comfortable.
Right.
Even though I know the result.
Right.
It's not going to be what I want.
No. There's no going back anyway. It
So-
wouldn't work.
Right. So my health was the first thing that I had to work on. And that's been 2.5 years. And I don't know if I ever would have known what my addiction was, which was sugar.
Right.
You can't, how do you have an addiction with food?
Right.
Food is here to nourish us.
Right.
So I've had to recreate a whole new relationship with food.
That's a big one too.
Yeah. Because I have to have food to live.
That's right. So it's not like I have an addiction with mind-altering substances. It's easy, just don't take them.
Right.
But when it comes to food, you need it to live, and you're also using it to stuff emotions and escape. And
Yeah, and you can't escape food. Like,
right.
We go out into this world and we're bombarded
Right.
with all those temptations. Like if you are an alcoholic, you just don't ever go to a liquor store. You don't go to a bar. You can almost eliminate any temptation outside of your own demon, I guess maybe.
Well, yeah. Although the attempt to just hide from it
That's
doesn't
true, yeah.
really work, because then all the ads, everything,
True.
I bartended for 7 years sober. So like I didn't take the path of like trying to stay away from it. It's being aware of what it does. Because if you try to hide from it, and food's the same thing. I mean, particularly sugar. Sugar is like I have a new relationship with sugar, and I've cut processed sugar out of my diet just this year.
Yeah, you were saying that. And you've lost weight.
Yes, I did. I lost 30 pounds.
And just doing that one thing.
Well, yeah, that was a big thing. I started doing CrossFit too. But,
yeah.
But yes, the sugar was huge. The sugar is what turned everything, because you can't exercise yourself out of a bad diet.
Well, do you feel like you're stronger and more efficient at CrossFit from reducing the sugar?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it changed everything. My energy levels. And for me, it's been a progression because it was caffeine that I cut out, and then sugar, which are both like mood altering. They like, and it's like without the sugar, my energy is better and more even throughout the day. I'm not these highs and lows that are happening at all.
Nice.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I like that you say hiding. Yes, you can't hide from life. We tried.
You can't. And you notice it. And like with sugar, I notice like all sorts of messages about it, like that starts from when you're a kid, and it even goes with adults, that sugar is how we reward people for doing something good or giving them something that they deserve. So it's like, oh, we've done good, let's go get ice cream. Mm-hmm. Let's have some cake. Let's celebrate birthdays with cake. Like, and it starts from a kid. It's like all celebration is these sugar bombs. Mm-hmm. So there's an association with it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I try so hard. I always tell Willie, I don't want to use dessert as a reward or punishment. I don't want to use food that way.
Right.
So it's transition. Slow down to the next level. It starts with me and Willie, and then it's coming. I mean, I can already see changes with the eating, but we still have a long ways to go with the kid.
Right.
I got to just get faster at that.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I'm just like, just eat.
Right.
It's hard. It's hard being...
It's finding the balance.
Yeah,
it's focusing on what's healthy and not focusing on what you can't have, because then your mind will just lock in on it.
Yeah. Now I look at food, like you said, I don't even pick foods that I know that will make me feel like crap.
Right.
Because I feel so good. After 60 days of no sugar, I felt amazing. And so I think it was 90 days at the point that I met you. I had been sugar-free.
Wow.
So I felt at that point I was ready to take on like the next thing that was happening in my life, which was divorce. So I've been married 3 times, which my audience knows. I did a monologue about my relationships and past. So yeah, Willie and I, we're at the point of divorce for the last few years.
Let me stop you for 1 second.
Oh, okay.
Do you want me to give him my name and do that?
Oh,
since
yeah.
we're
Did we
going
totally
so
not get that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, we didn't.
Oh,
So
yeah.
let me just say
Let's do
that.
the name,
and then,
yeah.
so that it's not too deep into it.
Yeah, we don't go too far into it.
Right.
Yeah.
So my name's Michael O'Rourke. And as far as the main thing that I would say based on what you're talking about, my passion fits into exactly what you were saying about what your audience is. And that is the 2 things that I'm the most passionate about is the process of life, how we work as human beings, how life shows up for us, and the realm of human relationships. Those are like the 2 things I'm the most passionate about. And it comes from a lot of dysfunction in both of those areas that have led me to the path where I'm at. Anyway.
As you say, I still feel like, as you say, as life shows up for us. And I feel that you showed up in my life when I needed it.
Right.
Probably if you showed up any other time, it wouldn't have
Had the same impact, right?
It wouldn't have been the right timing.
It was perfect.
Yeah. So I met you because I saw a request for volunteers on podcasts for Radical Intimacy.
Right.
And at this, I knew very little about podcasts. I had been on Cannabis Community Project in November, and I did another one in December.
Right.
So I'm like, I'll do that because I've done it before. And it's in the lifestyle world, which I'm looking into. And it was at a location, there was a party. So I felt if I could go and check it out and feel safe and comfortable, that I could bring Willie.
Right.
Right. Because I'm the one that's asking Willie to do this.
Right.
And I met you.
Right.
So will you tell me about Radical Intimacy?
Okay. Radical intimacy is a term that I came up with. Just as I said, the thing that I'm the most passionate about is one of the 2 things I'm the most passionate about is, and the 2 things are tied together, and it's the realm of human relationship. Okay. So intimate relationships, which to me is all relationships. It's not like defining we have friends and then we have a partner. Like, you may have that, but it's like, to me, the underlying foundation works the same. Like the fundamentals are the same. The fact that we play by these completely different rules for when it's a romantic relationship versus other human relationships. One right there, I think, is kind of the big key. So I guess the best way I can put it is that I feel like romantic relationships are based on a sense of saying what's normal and having rules about what that looks like, okay? And it's about attachment. It's about the form of how the relationship works. So people, they like each other, they go out on a date. If it goes further, then it turns into a sexual relationship. And then if that's going well, very quickly they start to put borders around it. Like, okay, well, now we're exclusive. Now it's monogamous. Now, and then it keeps growing. Then you mix your finances or cohabitate or get married and then have kids. And, it's all scripted out of how it's looks, and the form is the key to it. And it's based on attachment.
And this goes to beyond sanity, right? And that's the same way, right? Mm-hmm. That's what everybody, if you do that, then you're air quotes normal. Sane, right?
Right. Yep.
But in reality, how many of us are in that linear path and are so unhappy and so miserable?
Yeah.
That now our life is completely out of balance.
From the reading and the research and the experience that I have, the number of people that are inauthentic, out of balance, unhappy is the majority. To the point that I could say that the way that we do relationships, the marriage model as it is, I would make a case it absolutely doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I want to be careful because I don't want to attack anybody's rituals or beliefs or, and whatever's working for each person is what works. I'm just offering an alternative possibility of a process. Okay. And not getting caught in the content of it, because I think that typical relationships have a tendency to follow this pattern where it goes along those steps I just said. And then once you start putting up the boundaries, then comes the trying to control things and keep things in the boundaries. So the jealousy and possessiveness starts to play into trying to keep things within the boundaries as they're supposed to be of what's normal, like you said. And then that starts creating a perversion from intimacy or love. And there's people that'll make a case that like jealousy, like if you're jealous, it actually shows that you care. So it's like equated with love. And I would say jealousy is a perversion of love. To me, the definition of love, from my way of looking at it, is merely a commitment to whatever's in someone else's higher path. Okay. Mm-hmm. Not in regards of how it relates to me, not as long as you play by my rules, period. A more simple way to do it is love is I just care about that person's happiness and well-being. Period.
Yeah.
Even if what they're doing triggers all my insecurities, that's all I care about. And so jealousy and possessiveness is not love. It's the contrary to it. It's a fear-based thing to control. Okay. And what that pattern does is that jealousy and possessiveness leads to drama. It leads to things happening. It leads to fights. If you'll notice, fights inevitably are narrowed down to the other person not doing something that somebody wants because it's making them afraid or they don't feel loved or they're trying to, I feel insecure because of what you're doing. So I'm going to yell and scream or fight with you because I'm trying to get you to get in alignment so I don't have to feel these things because I'm making you responsible because you're my partner.
Right.
And that's where that perversion comes from. And then it becomes a spin cycle because those arguments, those harsh words, those things happening, they create damage. And they're based on the fact that we've made these boundaries that I will say are unnatural. And we'll talk about the difference between normal and natural in a sec. And we create these boundaries that are unnatural, and then we're trying to act in this paradigm because we think it's normal and what we're supposed to do. And then our human nature pulls us towards what's natural, and then it creates these fights, and then we make up from them. We might even have makeup sex from it. And that might
Everybody says makeup sex is the best sex.
Right. Well, makeup sex releases endorphins and dopamine and all sorts of stuff. And so when you're in that bliss after that, it's literally you've drugged yourself into thinking it's okay. Okay. And two things. One, it doesn't fix the damage. Like every time that happens, it creates damage. And the second thing is you haven't dealt with the root cause. So it's a spin cycle.
Right.
Until it gets so bad and it's built up so bad, then the breakup comes. And that's like the typical pathway of the way it works. And where I'm coming from is no boundaries, no rules. Okay. So acceptance is the key of intimacy. It's based not on attachment. It's based on acceptance. Accepting myself for exactly who and what I am right now. Accepting you as my partner for exactly who and what you are. Not what you can be, not what you should do now that we're together. Nothing. It's just an acceptance for who you are. And no boundaries. There's no rules. Like, do what works for you, period.
Yeah.
Okay. And go ahead.
Oh, well, I wanted to go back to what you said, like you wanted to be careful on the whole marriage subject. Right. Which is fine, but I wanted to go back to that in a sense of, for me, marriage is not working.
Right.
This is my third one.
Right.
So at this point, I'm the common denominator, right? That's what so again, as you just said, responsible for me.
Right.
But how do you, for me, this podcast is a place for people to find out, well, where would I start? If I'm a person sitting out there and I'm like, I don't think monogamy or marriage or tradition, however you think you're supposed to be, right? Be married to a man or married to a woman, marriage, that traditional thing that we all are beaten down with, right?
Right.
And we know we don't fit into that mold.
Right.
So where would people start to figure out what types of relationships, this radical intimacy, also sexuality? Maybe I'm not heterosexual. Maybe I'm not homosexual. Maybe I'm, you know what I'm saying? So how do you start that self-discovery and knowing what what are your alternatives are besides what we all know, marriage.
Right. That's a great question.
Okay, so was that too many questions?
No,
in one?
no. It's all tied together.
Because I think too, based on our conversations that we've had, because ever since we've met, I think we've met at least every month or every other month. You
Right.
make time for me.
Right.
Like for me, coming into the lifestyle, that's just saying I'm open to other alternatives. But I know there's a lot more things I haven't investigated. And it's like, where do I start? Anyways, you were coming from, you've been married. So I guess it's kind of like, how did you decide, or what made you question that monogamy and marriage wasn't something for you, wasn't fitting who you were authentically?
Right. Okay. So let's come back to that.
Okay,
and I'll
okay,
answer
okay.
your first question, but it leads back to the other
Okay,
one.
good, perfect.
So the first thing is, first of all, let me just say that the act or the ceremony or the legality of marriage itself isn't really relevant to to how we do it. It's what it represents. Okay. And many, if not most people are actually playing by the rules of marriage, even if they don't get married. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
it's the underlying thinking and the framework of that I'm offering alternatives to. Okay. Marriage is a ceremony. It's some religious and legal ceremony twisted together into something that by itself doesn't mean anything. It's what we make it mean. And the thing that I would offer, and this goes back to my natural conversation, is that it's relatively new in our human history. It's only been in the last 10,000 years of our human history that we've even come up with this idea of possessiveness, of monogamy, sexual exclusivity, of till death do us part. Like that is, for 200,000 years before that, we ran around with no concept of that. The advent of that was at the beginning of the agricultural age when we started owning things. Parental certainty became an issue because if we were going to move our bloodline on and we owned everything, we needed to own the female because she had parental certainty. If you give birth to someone, you know it's your kid. Man, you don't know that. And before the agricultural, we traveled in tribes and parental certainty wasn't important. So it wasn't a natural part of our existence to have possessiveness or jealousy or...
I have a quick question on that. Yeah. When you said 10,000 years ago, running around in tribes, or I like say maybe communities. I feel like we're definitely lacking in community.
Right. It was the beginning of the agricultural age.
Yeah. Do you think that within a tribe, I want to focus on the male, as you said, a woman gives birth, she knows that's her mother or that's her child.
Right.
Do you feel men in a tribe, before this, in the tribe, that they were very much all father figures?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it was, the parental responsibility was shared amongst the entire tribe, no matter what your gender was. And then we moved to this more possessive state that the parenting really fell to the women at that point and men stepped away. I'm just curious the way parenting has changed.
Right. And I can't speak to how much of the nurturing or that sort of thing was more done by females than males, or if that was balanced at that time. The thing that I will say is that before the agricultural age, when we were hunter-gatherers and we were traveling, everything was done everyone involved was doing what was best for the tribe. Because out on your own, your chances of survival plummeted. Everything was based on what was best for the tribe, including raising kids. So the concept of possessiveness didn't exist at all.
No, because the thing is, the children are what continues your existence.
That's right.
Right? And so a whole tribe could wipe extinct.
Right. Part of its thriving survival is reproduction. Absolutely.
Yeah. And now we're so overpopulated. Do you think? I don't know.
Right. That's
okay.
a whole nother topic.
Well, so anyways, I was just thinking maybe how dynamics have shifted also from a parenting. Obviously, the whole family structure is completely different now.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all there. There's now a basis of possessiveness, that got created when it's like, now I have my land, I belong to it, I need this stuff, and I need all, like we started circling, and that's when income disparity started happening. That's when we invented money. It's like we created this whole disparity of that. And what that created was a sense of possessiveness of males to own their females so that they could guarantee parental certainty. And that's where all that started. Now, so what they did is they normalized monogamy and marriage and, created marriage as a way to reinforce the normalization. Monogamy, because that's the only way I can have parental certainty, is if I make sure no one else.
Yeah.
And that created that. Now, it's not natural to fit in that. It may be normal. It's not natural. And so the focus became on doing what you're supposed to, what should be done, because that's a normal thing. Well, the thing is to me, the enlightenment is find what's natural. Be who you are. And so don't focus on what the norms are, what I'm supposed to do, how I can make it fit. As a matter of fact, I would even propose that the focus is not even on like, how can I do relationships different? What's real for me? What's natural for me? And we literally have a relationship with ourselves. How can I create a loving, accepting relationship with myself? The rest expands, it like ripples out from there.
So how does one find what's natural for them? I was talking about this in the car. What I want to talk to you about is how does one grow or mature into their sexuality and what they're naturally drawn to for relationships?
Right.
Like, how do we learn that?
Right.
Or how do we relearn it or rediscover it if we know that it's not a normal fit or it's not our natural fit?
And that'll lead to your other question of asking me how I got to the place that I was. It's a process, and it's about doing a lot of what you're doing, being courageous to follow where your heart takes you. So just to kind of put a little can opener on this topic, because it leads to what you're saying, is your mind is not who you are. So that soundtrack in your head that's telling you what I need to do, what I'm supposed to do, what I better take care of, what I forgot. Oh my God, why did I do that? You know, like that voice that's constantly running in your head that's telling you everything you need to do, supposed to do, should do, examines and regrets what you may have done, or, you know, evaluates it, that judges situations and people, all of that. Like that voice in your head is not who we are. And not only is it not who we are, and I would define that as our mind or ego, which I would call those interchangeable. And we are conditioned by our raising of our society that we're mind identified, that we need to listen to that voice. If it's not who we are, at the very least, it knows what's best for us. And it'll tell us it knows what's best for us. Okay. Well, it doesn't. It doesn't have our best interests at heart. All it wants to do is stay in charge and run the boat. But it does everything based on anxiety and fear, because right here, right now is the only thing that's real. It's like, that's all that's real. And that's where love, compassion, change, it all exists in the moment. Okay. And if you'll notice, the content of our mind is always outside of the moment. It has no access to the moment. Its content is always spinning on what do I need to do, or, oh my God, what did I do? Mm-hmm. Even if it's patting yourself on the back, it's just still not living in the moment. So it's like, as my son likes to say, your ego is not your amigo.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is a great saying. Your amigo, or your ego is not your amigo.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember that.
So there is an essence. There is a spirit, a core of ourselves. I don't care what language you use. You could use higher self, your God connection, like whatever language you use there, and it talks to you through intuition. A lot of people talk to about being your gut. It's like it talks to you through intuition, and it exists in the moment. It is aware of the illusion of the separateness that we think we're living in. Developing the relationship and learning to observe and accept our mind, not letting it drive the bus anymore. Just, okay, mind, you're telling me my story. I hear that. Thanks for sharing. I'm going to listen to my gut, because we can't just overcome it and say, oh, I shouldn't listen to my mind, because that's just more mind talk. Okay. There could be a lot more about that topic, but I just introduced that because to answer your question about how do you find that, it's like start paying attention to how your mind is not your friend, how it's telling you things, how it's beating you up, how it's telling you what you're doing wrong. How it'll tell you on one hand not to do something and then turn around 2 minutes later and tell you what a loser you are because you didn't do what it just told you not to do. It'll beat both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
And just observe it and accept it. Playing the observer of our mind. And that will allow the spirit of who we are to come through. Okay. And it's in there. You know it's there. You can feel it. And when you're not listening to it, you can feel it in your gut too, that like you're doing things that are not in alignment with your spirit. So the pathway that I was raised with 8 years of Catholic school, very Catholic, all the shame base that goes with that. Got into my first marriage because I thought it was the right thing to do.
And where did you grow up?
Littleton.
Oh, so you're a native.
Yeah, I am.
How did I miss that?
Yeah, because I lived in California for a long time.
Well, I knew you're
but-
from California, so
Right.
you were born in Colorado.
Born in Colorado. Yep.
Littleton?
Littleton. Well, born in Inglewood, but grew up in
okay,
Littleton.
And then you moved to California when?
Well, I moved once during the 80s when I was in my 20s, and then I moved back again in the early 2000s for 10 years.
Okay. Sorry. So first marriage out of high school?
Yeah, I was high school sweetheart. And I was just doing what I thought I was supposed to do. So you hit puberty as a male, and like your hormones are bouncing off the wall, and you like want to do something. And like you think about having sex with 100 people a day. That may even be low.
I have a 17-year-old son. I don't ask that stuff, but
Right. Yes. Exactly. So
I can only imagine.
you get taught right away that like, okay, well, if you want to have sex, you need to like be a good guy and be a stand-up guy and find somebody and like have a relationship. Like you can't just run around and just have sex. You got to like do the right thing. And besides that, if you don't do that, not only will you not get sex or not get it as much, you also will end up being horribly lonely and pathetic and alone as you get older. Okay. So it's like, do the right thing. I remember right before I got married, I told my dad, I said, Dad, I'm not really happy. I said, you're not supposed to be happy right now. Just keep doing the right thing. That'll come later. Okay. And so she was very possessive, very jealous. I cut all my friends out of my life, because she couldn't handle any of that. And and it was like at my core, I knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
Like knew it was wrong. And yet it's like, well, you just do with what you can. You make it do because this is the way you're supposed to do things. This is significant because it changed the course of my life. My wife's brother, who was only a couple years younger than her, when he was 13, had drowned out at Chatfield.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay. And that's important because when we had been married for about a year and 9 months, my youngest sister at 13 got run over and killed by a drunk driver.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And so several things happened with that. I didn't understand what was happening at the time, but my wife had never dealt with the death of her brother. So she had an affair and ran away from me within a month of my sister dying.
Whoa.
Yeah, just like immediately. It was like bang, bang. And this whole thing about live towards the future, do the right thing, all went out the fucking window. I'm like, fuck that. You can die in a split second.
So do you think your sister's death triggered her to be unfaithful to you, or do you think she was already unfaithful?
No, it happened then.
Oh, okay.
Flat out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, guaranteed. Our life was so locked up that like the very first time she was with him, I knew. And actually, I'll share something too. There was a little bit of learning in that too, because she did not like having sex with me. She told me it was horrible. She could go her whole life without it. She held it over my head. You know what I mean? She did not like it whatsoever. And then she hooked up with a guy when this happened that she loved having sex with. Okay. I was at the most vulnerable part of my whole life. She was the only person outside of my family that I thought understood what I was going through. Because losing a very bright, amazing, beautiful spirit of a 13-year-old sister is not the same as losing your grandmother.
No.
Or
No.
aunt. I mean, those are sad too. I've had both that, but it's not the same. And so she was the only one outside of my family that I thought could really relate to who I was or what I was going through. And I'd always wanted to have more sex with her, and she never wanted to. And now she abandoned me at my most vulnerable moment and was loving having sex with someone else.
Right.
Barely even tried to hide it from me.
Yeah.
Okay. And I learned something about myself in this. Just like I learned with a girlfriend when I was 13, which is a whole nother 13 or 14, which is a whole nother story. But it kind of goes to your question about how did I know, or how did I start to find my true self? When I would think, even in my most lonely, horrible, feeling abandoned place, when I would think about the details of her like enjoying sex with another person, it excited me. It didn't freak me out. I didn't feel disgusted by it.
Because you loved her.
Well, because I loved her, and because who I am is fundamentally non-monogamous. Okay. And for me, my bend even is that my entire life, 90% of the fantasies I've had, of masturbation fantasies, everything, 90% of the fantasy I've had since I've been 13 years old and hit puberty have been situations that involved more than one other person there. Mm-hmm. So like I'm fundamentally wired to have sexual experiences that involve more people.
Okay.
So the idea of somebody that I love having sex with somebody else, not only does it come from the compersion standpoint of like, I'm just happy because she's happy, which it does. It also excites me because that's the way my brain works with it. For someone I'm close to get sexual excitement drives me crazy. It really turns me on. And that was the first time that it's like, even in all of those dire circumstances, oh, I'm not reacting. Like what's going on inside me is not what I would expect based on what's perceived as normal.
Right.
Because people who have been cheated on have a tendency to say, oh, when I think about it, it just makes me sick. I'm, sick to my stomach. I think about them, or moaning different or what, like none of that bothers me. Mm-hmm. Never has. And so that was kind of a first key with that. And I also threw out the whole window of like what you're supposed to do, live for the future. Fuck all that. I threw it all out the window. Now, for me, I'm an addict. So what I also did is just started escaping those feelings and started living, quote unquote, in the moment, but just doing it in a completely self-destructive way.
Right.
So my alcoholism and drug addiction just nosedived.
After your marriage?
After
the first
that,
marriage?
After the first marriage and after my sister died, which both happened at the same time.
Yeah. Were you already drinking then?
Yeah.
But like socially or
well,
every day?
my perception of it is that I was on the pathway of a good functioning alcoholic that would have been in my 50s or 60s before it finally caught up to me.
Oh, okay.
But it would have been, I have two friends that I grew up with that are just now looking at that in their 50s. Their life is a string of effects from their functioning alcoholism.
Right.
You know what I mean? They kept jobs, they did stuff. One of them ended up getting injured and then kind of fell into something else. Somebody else got DUI and finally woke him up. You know what I mean? But it just, I was on that pathway. Mm-hmm. I was just like those guys. That would have been me, dealing with all the years of that wreckage and survival through it. And so, no, it turned up the volume. Because I feel like I was born an alcoholic and an addict. It just how it plays out.
Yeah. So you were a functioning alcoholic, and then what made you wake up from that? Well,
so the years from the beginning of 84 till the end of 89 was just an ever deepening cascade downward. Mm-hmm. Now, the only bright spot in that is my son was born in 86. But
and this was with...
I got married a second time, but not to my son's mother.
Oh, okay.
We had about as dysfunctional a relationship as you could possibly get. And when we gave up on trying to do the relationship part and just became parents, it worked way better. Mm-hmm. I'm very fortunate that we have a very loving, caring relationship that was based on what's best for my son. I feel very grateful for that. And between 84 and 89, or the end of 89, so basically from 84 to 90, it was just basically a barrage of ever-increasing drinking, drugs, cocaine, crystal meth, like it just and it ended up hitting bottom in California because I'd moved to California the last 2 years before that.
Okay.
What woke me up to that is I got to the edge of dying and decided to ask for help instead of dying.
Nice. I'm glad you asked for help.
Yeah, thanks. It's a dramatic story.
We wouldn't be having this conversation today.
No, we wouldn't, and I'm grateful for that.
Me too.
So there was a little bit of, then being sober, it's like something that can happen when you get clean and sober is you can start to demonize all the sexual behavior that happened during the drinking and drugging days, which a lot did. Because when I'm doing it as an addict and I'm using, I do it in destructive ways.
Well, for me, same thing, right? Not every time I drank, but again, a lot of the sexual behaviors were drunk, right?
Right.
But that was never an excuse, but it was easy to put that excuse there.
Yep, that's right. And so you have a tendency to do those in a destructive way because you're using the drugs to lower the inhibitions. The thing is the drugs and the drinking don't put those things inside you. They just make them come out in a thwarted way. And a lot of times with getting clean and sober, people will have a tendency to bundle all of those sexual behaviors into the bad category along with the drugs and the alcohol. and not realize that. I went through a bit of that, of trying to then be a healthy person, living a healthy life and trying to do that. But none of those things changed. I was still the same person. Now, I'd never even discovered anybody in the lifestyle at this point. You know, I thought it was something that went away in the 70s. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, no, I don't know. I was born in 74.
Right.
I
well, I
see-
was too young too, but
We all know Boogie Night.
right, which was made much later. But yes.
Yes.
But I was still like, this doesn't feel right to me. Like I would try to follow the rules and have relationships based on that, but it was like it just didn't feel right. And I would talk to people about like this whole idea about being sexually exclusive, like doesn't make any sense to me. The idea of someone I'm with having sex with someone else excites me. I want to do that. All my fantasies involve more than one other person. Like, and they're all just like, you haven't grown up, you haven't matured, you're afraid of commitment. When you meet the one, it'll change. You know, you just haven't loved right. You know, until I was 35 years old, not a single person that I brought that up to saw what I was saying at all. Literally every single person told me, no, you're wrong. That's wrong. That's just not the way things work. And guys, when guys talk to guys, they're even aware of the fact that like being sexually exclusive is abhorrently unnatural. Mm-hmm. It's just understood. But they say, well, yeah, but you just do what's right. You do what's normal instead of what's natural. So the focus is on normality, not on what's natural.
Right.
There was no one having a conversation with, well, let's explore what's real for you.
Right. That's exactly right. So how do we do that?
Okay. So it all begins with the self-acceptance. It begins with that, because what I've found through this path is that if I don't think that something about myself is okay, and then I go on a journey to make it okay from outside of myself, it won't work, because I can't help but recreate situations that support the story that I have inside myself. So it's that observe and accept. It's paying attention to what the story is and then learning to love and accept ourselves for who we are. And it works really amazingly, because it does help to find groups or people that are more supportive. You know what I mean? Like I went to my first lifestyle party on New Year's Eve of 96, you know, for New Year's Day of 97.
And maybe we should stop here and define lifestyle so that...
Oh, okay. I didn't know. We've been throwing that word around.
I know, but maybe we should take a time out and say, because lifestyle, I think, is just a portion of alternative relationships.
That's right. And some different ones use terms like the lifestyle. Kind of the big one as I'm using it is, you know, swingers. Yeah,
I categorize it as swingers, or I say alternative relationships, because I think, how would you define swinger?
That's a great question, and we can get into some danger with this.
Oh, well.
Because that's one thing I want to be very careful about, too, is that, to me, identifying yourself with a group can be helpful if it will help you find support for discovering who you are. And identifying with a group can also put you in narrow boxes and can have you start playing by new, quote unquote, normal rules. Okay, so like identifying myself as an alcoholic was helpful to break the pattern of the alcoholism. And if I only define myself as an alcoholic and get trapped in that, my life gets very narrow again. Mm-hmm. Same thing with when I went to that first swinger party, it was like I went from not a single person agreeing with what I was saying to literally every single person that I shared with that going, yeah, you're right. I get what you're saying. Mm-hmm. It was like I found my people, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so that was very supportive. And if I then go, okay, well, what's a swinger and what are the rules of a swinger and how do I fit in as a swinger? Like then it starts to become a narrow path again, because it's not what the rules are. It's not what's normal. It's what's natural. And we can only discover that within inside ourselves.
Right.
Because there's been a divide over the years between the polyamory groups and the swinger groups, you know, and it's like I fit right down the middle, you know, it's like.
Well, then let's take a second there. So what do you think is the dividing point between swinger, like if you categorize yourself as a swinger, I say categories, but if you feel the most connected with swinger versus polyamorous,
right?
What would you say are the two distinguishing between
the thing that I would say as it seems to be practiced, okay, because there are all different flavors of it, is that the swinging lifestyle has a tendency to be couples oriented, okay, and they have a tendency to be couples who are trying to expand on their sex life with, explore different things besides just monogamy. Okay. They have a tendency to go in with very tight rules of like, okay, we're the unit.
Okay.
And
like we're a couple, the Mr. and the Mrs.
We're the couple, and we're going to bring people up for the spice of things. But some of them are like, it can't mean anything. It can only be sex, which is impossible, by the way. But it's like, and the people that stay in it longer and are more comfortable with themselves, that widens. But typically it comes in with these very like, okay, well, if we're going to do this, let's bury ourselves and make sure we protect the unit, and then we'll explore out. You know what I mean? So it has a tendency to come from that place.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because this kind of feels like where Willie and I started, right?
Which is, it happens pretty much every time. and polyamory has a tendency to be more of a trying to create multiple intimate relationships. So they can use terminology like primary relationship or secondary, can be part of it or not. They have a tendency to be more, it's not just like a couple and then outside people. Some of them do stuff close to that, but kind of the underlying thinking about it is like multiple loving intimate relationships and whatever forms those take. Mm-hmm. Now, that world can also have its own set of rules of how it sees things to be. And the divide, I think, is thinning. And traditionally what I would run into is the polyamory group would think that the swingers are just a bunch of fucking sex fiends trying to have sex. And the swingers would think that, it's like, yeah, like we're going to get some intimate relationships like involved in our couple. No way. You know what I mean? It's frightening.
Right.
And to me, the key point to it is kind of where I'm coming from, the whole underlying thing. Like, I'm not out to advocate swinging or polyamory or any other. No, it's finding out whatever your truth is. And to me, the underlying thing is doing what works for you and not having you're not laying rules on someone else of how they have to behave, or someone allowing anyone else to lay rules on you. Mm-hmm. To me, the whole no boundaries, no rules is the key.
Well, I think that's the other thing too, is that we are not necessarily taught, which I think is part of my growth, is standing in my ask, standing in what I want, what I desire.
Right.
And not backing down from those things and compromising, which will make me unhappy.
Right.
So same with this lifestyle. Yeah. I say coming as lifestyle, meaning I'm coming away from monogamy and I'm looking for an alternative.
Right.
And I put that out there to my husband, saying, I do not want a monogamous relationship.
Right.
But I don't know what I want.
Right.
Will you be my partner in finding it out? Right. And that's a very big ask. But I think being able to be open and honest with him about that, he knows that if he decides that that's not for him,
right,
at least we understand why, right? And he can be happy for what I'm looking for,
right,
and I can be happy with what he's looking for. But I hope that at this point he's willing to take every step that I've asked,
right.
And it's not that he's uncomfortable. Well, I mean, he is uncomfortable in a certain sense, but he's not running for the hills,
right?
So
right.
I don't know.
The key to all that is, first of all, we have that whole normal focus over natural focus has a tendency to have us like think about, well, is this okay that I'm like this? Does this fit in that I do this? And we judge our own sense of truth. And so when you ask it, it's like, how do you find your own truth? It's like, just stop blocking it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because that's what we're doing. It's like it's bubbling out inside of us. We feel it. And yet then we're trying to channel it through what's acceptable. And it's just being who we are, being authentic and standing in our authenticity would be the language I would use.
Oh, standing in my and that, I guess it's not, I want to say that I'm not looking to replicate what I've had with Willie.
Right.
I'm not. I said, whoever comes into my life, that will be my authenticity. I am not a monogamous person.
Right.
And I will never, and it's the deception, like as you said, I think we had this conversation, it's deception or the lie of not being truthful to him. Of course, not knowing that about myself. Again, thinking that I needed, as I've had those conversations with everybody else, you just haven't matured yet sexually, haven't met the right person.
Right.
Like, it's like, why can't I find the perfect guy that, you know, wows me in bed and is my perfect sexual mate and my perfect intellectual mate, you know, perfect partner.
Right.
There is no perfect partner out there. So it's like, where do you compromise then if you're in a monogamous relationship?
Right. Well, and to me, part of this normalization of this kind of boundary-ridden, rule-driven relationship model is that there's some myths, if you will, that come out of it. One of them is that, like, love is hard work. No, it isn't. Loving yourself and then loving somebody and accepting them for exactly who they are is the easiest thing in the world. It may bring up insecurities, but if I lay my insecurities on somebody and then try to work it out based on that, that's where the hard work is. Okay? It's not hard work or a negotiation to just be true and let someone else be true. And that compromise thing, it's like, it doesn't mean that loving somebody doesn't mean taking into consideration what's real for them or being open to it or listening to their feelings. The compromise thing, though, is like, oh, well, if you're willing to work hard and it matters to you, you'll be willing to compromise to make it better. Okay. But if you compromise who you are, you're compromising who you are.
Well, and you're compromising your happiness. And
Period.
Yeah.
You're compromising everything. Compromise is compromise. It's not some magic formula to get to the happy land of intimacy heaven. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and that's the way it gets presented. Mm-hmm. So, like, to me, the key is I have somebody I'm engaged in a relationship with that is close to me and they have feelings on what's happening or what I'm choosing, what's going on. I'll be very open, very caring, listen to what's going on, want to know what's happening, be as supportive as I can about it. I won't change my behavior to try to make it better. That is the key. It's like, oh, well, she's really jealous, so I'm going to prove to her she has nothing to be jealous about, and I'll change all my behavior. I'll eliminate all my female friends, and then she'll be safer because I'll show her it's safe. Mm. But what that does is that nurtures the insecurity. It doesn't nurture the healthy side. And you resent the person because you've changed your patterns. You've stopped doing what's true to you to nurture someone else's insecurity. You can't help but resent them if you do that. And then the flip side is the person gets more insecure.
Right.
It doesn't help them or you.
Yeah.
So that whole compromise word's a big flashing red word to me. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, doesn't mean you're not open and flexible. The key is compromising what's your truth and who you are is an unsustainable model. It will come out sideways somewhere. Either
yes.
in resentments or fights. It'll come out in addiction and stuffing and hiding. It'll come out somewhere. We cannot sustain over any period of time successfully being inauthentic. Mm-hmm. And when you think about it, why would we want to?
No, because it's so exhausting. Oh
I
my
know.
God.
It is.
I think that's what the other thing is. We spend so much energy trying to, like you said, not be our true self, our authentic self. And that's just so much energy. If we're just take that energy and be ourselves and do what we want, that fuels us.
Right.
Our energy level goes way up here.
Right. Yeah. It's freedom.
It is total freedom.
Responsibility and freedom are the same word to me, because responsibility is me being responsible for myself and my feelings and my life. Mm-hmm. And when I do that, I can make any choice that's in alignment with my true self. Yeah. And so, like in the relationship I'm in with Bev, I told her when I met her that, well, when we reconnected.
Because you guys knew each other when you were younger, right?
We did know each other when we were younger.
She was friends with your...
She was friends with my son's mother. She was best friends and roommate with my son's mother.
Okay, that's right.
So I met her when I started dating my son's mother. Okay. And we had an immediate connection that was a problem back in the monogamy land.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then you reconnected how many years later?
25 years later.
Okay. Same spark still there?
Immediately.
Nice.
Immediately. I had always held her in a very deep, fond place.
Nice.
And yeah, it was literally a miracle to reconnect.
And you guys have been connected now for
4
5
years. 4 years. Yeah.
Okay, anyways, I interrupted. Bev, you're saying about Bev.
When I first reconnected with her, I made the statement that I insist on living my life in a way that I can follow my intuition, period, wherever it takes me. Because I've done all this practice of observing my mind and seeing my intuition and following my gut and my intuition. That's how life shows up in an empowered way for me. So I insist on living my life in a way that follows my intuition without compromise, without negotiation, without rationalization, without explanation. Period. Now, when I've made that statement, I've had people tell me, well, you shouldn't be in a relationship then. You're too selfish. You want to just do things you want. You're not willing to compromise. You're not mature enough. You're dangerous. You need to stop dating. Like I've got all sorts of backlash to that statement. And when I told Bev that, she said, good, that means I can trust you.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between when people hear that and what's really going on. I think it means that for me, it's like, as you said, how your life shows up. And you live in the present, so you don't know tomorrow who walks through that door, what phone call gets, what email you get. On any aspect of your life, it could change it, and you live a life that you can do that with whatever life brings you the next day,
right?
Or that minute, that second.
That's right.
Doesn't mean you're going out there and just doing whatever you want and just it's the apocalypse,
right?
It just means that's how you want to live your life.
That's right.
And you want somebody supportive of that process that you do, or how you want to be able to live in the present, live in the now.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I think that's healthy, nutritious, being alive.
I agree. And here's a radical idea. All of us, can do whatever we want.
Right?
Period.
We can.
Yep. We can do whatever we want.
And people do.
People do. And it can be a radical idea. Because, you can't just do what you want. We've got responsibilities. Well, responsibility is freedom to me. It's not the opposite of freedom, which is usually the way responsibility gets laid down. Mm-hmm. And it's usually laid down within the realm of the boundary wall-driven relationship model. Mm-hmm. It's like when you're a kid and you're growing up, they're like, oh, you want to grow up and be happy. You want to do what you want. You want to do that. And then all of a sudden, you get in a relationship and it's like, well, you can't just do whatever you want. And you can't just be you can't be selfish. You got to be willing to give. You got to be willing to compromise. It's like, oh, wait. These are some very mixed messages. And it's interesting because the only people that have ever accused me of being selfish in my entire life have been people that are upset with me because I wouldn't do something that they wanted me to do, which I find horribly ironic.
Right?
Yeah.
I remember my mom used to call me selfish a lot.
Yeah.
So and I always feel like I'm the opposite. I feel like I'm a giver.
Right. Right. Yeah. And
but I hear that voice in my head, my kids are home, fall break. I got my 4 kids at home.
Right.
I'm working the beer fest for 3 nights, which
right.
Loving that because that fuels me. I'm a social person.
Right.
But that voice in my head says, I should be a mother, I should be at home. Why am I out here doing this 424 Play podcast? And
right. Because you're following your authentic self.
Yes, because I love to sit in this room and have these conversations.
Yeah, very cool.
I don't know. I think I interrupted you, but I did want to go back to the podcast. So how long have you been doing intimate or radical intimacy?
Not very long, and I'm still just trying to form it, honestly.
Oh, okay.
And what I started with was like what you went to, of just recording sessions of having people get together and talk about what does relationship mean to you.
Mm-hmm. What does intimacy mean
to you?
Intimacy.
Very key point. That's a good point. What does intimacy mean to you?
Yes.
Thank you for that correction, because that's a very key point. So,
and that's where I broke down and cried immediately, because I was the first one up.
You were. And what you said was intimacy. What intimacy means to you is you said intimacy is what's missing. That really stuck with me. And so I have been having conversations with people about what does intimacy mean to you and gathering some recordings and information around that. Where I'm wanting to take that now is to have a discussion, and I'm even looking about putting some groups together of what would, let me just state this again to make it clear. I feel that boundary-driven relationship, rules-based relationships are what's normal, and I don't think they're natural. Mm-hmm. Natural is intimate relationships that have no boundaries, that have no rules. Okay.
Well, sorry.
No, that's right.
What would you define intimacy as?
Well,
I know you say
into me you see. Right, exactly. So intimacy is sharing who you authentically are with another person and seeing that. Or seeing it in yourself. We have intimate relationships with ourselves. As a matter of fact, the relationship we have with ourselves creates every other relationship we have. Mm-hmm. Like I'll cover this real quick. We talked about this earlier, and I talked about that it starts from self-acceptance within, and that if we're trying to fix it from the outside, it doesn't work. Even though I met the lifestyle, went to that party, and started running in circles of people that did that, I still was creating relationships that would be conflict because I still didn't think my sexuality and how I was okay. Mm. And so I still couldn't help it. I'd meet them. I'd tell them this is what I'm into. They'd say, oh, that sounds great. And then when it came down to it of actually trying to explore it, they'd freaking flip out. You know what I mean? And tell me how crazy I am and I can't do this. And that was fine before, but now I love you, so I can't stand it, And then it would just blow up in a fiery ball of drama. You know what I mean?
I don't mean to be laughing.
Yeah, no, it's pretty funny.
Because I feel kind of, yeah.
And it was over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it took me getting to the point of going, I do not care if I spend the rest of my life alone masturbating in the corner. This is who I am, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And here's the amazing thing. Once that shift really happened, once I took that to my core and I was okay, and I wasn't trying to find proof of the evidence that it's okay by creating something on the outside. I have this idea it's okay. Let's try to go find something so I'll know it's okay. Because our insecurities will find the evidence to support our insecurities. Mm-hmm. Our stories. They'll find it.
Oh, yeah. We'll
create it. Mm-hmm. And here's the magical thing is when I had that point of okay, I don't care who accepts it. I'm okay with it. And I felt that really inside. Every single relationship I've had since that day, none of those things even appear. None of those fights, none of that problem, none of that attacking. It literally vanished because we create our reality based on how we see ourselves from the inside out. Mm-hmm. So we don't have to fix anything.
Yeah, you say that when we meet that I'm not broken.
Right.
Because I say I'm on this journey of fixing myself.
Right.
But it's not necessarily fixing myself.
No.
It's that
you're whole, complete, and perfect, exactly the way you are.
I think it's what I call I started my blog. I've only done 2 blogs. But again, a lot of things that I start.
Right.
Peeling, or the self-peeling onion.
Right.
So basically it's peeling away at all of the stuff that I've added and padded on in my uncomfortableness and trying to fit in and do the same thing and compromise myself just to be accepted.
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And
because
the masses.
You don't feel acceptable inside, so you're trying to create it from the outside. And it absolutely doesn't work.
No.
And from the flip side, when we do find that self-acceptance inside, all the things that we were fighting against just go away.
Yes. And another thing, too, when you look at yourself, for me, it's the first time in my life that I actually think I'm pretty.
Right.
Which
That's awesome.
Is hard to say.
Yeah.
And I never want my children to not think they're beautiful and good people.
Right.
So I think, and I know it sounds crazy for people listening to this podcast, but I do all this for my children.
Right.
Because I think the sooner that they love themselves,
Right.
the better their world will be.
Yep. And your actions are making so much noise they can't hear a word you're saying. So the fact that you're actually moving through this to live a resigned life where you did all the shoulds and stayed home all the times you did and preached at them all this stuff about living a full life and being truly authentic, if you weren't doing it yourself, would fall on deaf ears.
Yeah, I believe that. And I can see it in at least my older two right now.
Right.
My son, I'm so proud of him. I just proud of who he's growing into. Just a good man, good boy. And my daughter too, she's figuring herself out. And I think my daughter's been very comfortable or open with her sexuality and her she identifies as poly. And of course, I never even heard of any of this stuff when she started talking about it 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
And I've just been supportive with her and just ask her a lot of questions.
Right.
Which then spurred my own almost sexual discovery. It's kind of weird.
Right.
She's doing it, and I want her to be able to feel comfortable asking questions and being okay that she doesn't know, or she's not interested in boys, or maybe she's just not interested in that piece yet.
Right.
And that's fine. She's only 14.
Right.
I just know I wasn't the same as she was at 14.
Right.
So part of me feels like I'm going through what I should have gone through as a normal 14-year-old.
Should have gone through normal. Yeah.
No, having the ability to explore.
Right.
I don't know. Our generation, I think we're maybe 10 years apart. I don't even know how old you are.
Yeah.
I guesstimated maybe we were 10 years apart, just based on your son's age.
Right. Okay.
I don't know where I was going with that.
So, to go back.
So anyways, freedom to be able to explore what feels natural.
Right.
Like instead of saying you find a boyfriend, you're monogamous, you get married, you have, that lineage. I don't want my kids to see that that's the path they have to take.
Right.
I want them to be able to figure out, hey, maybe this will work. I don't really like that.Maybe this will work. Maybe I don't like that.
Right? And to me, that's the thing of what I want to explore with the radical intimacy is what does it look like not to have boundaries? What does it look like to have intimacy where we're just truly accepting and embracing and celebrating all of each other based on what our truth is and not trying to put boundaries to make us feel safe around it. And in fact, I just registered because I wrote a piece that I call Fierce Love, and it's kind of the vision of how I kind of see that next step with radical intimacy is creating a vision of something that I call Fierce Love. And I got a website that's fierce-love.com that I just got. And because that whole radical intimacy thing, like the next step to me is like, I've just been exploring what intimacy is to people now. And what I'd like to explore is what does it look like to create human relationships that are not based on boundaries, rules. Okay. And there's a dynamic that you notice happens in quote unquote typical relationships is that it has a narrowing effect. It's like when you're free and single, if you will, you're out exploring, doing all the things like you're talking about. And then when you get connected, now all of a sudden the road narrows. Now all of a sudden there's like all these things you're supposed to do. Now you're responsible. You're going to settle down. It's like there's like all of this stuff. And so it becomes a very narrowing experience. I used to run around and do this, and I used to have all these girlfriends, and now we're together, that all changes. So it has this narrowing experience, and what the vision I have is a relationship actually being an expansive experience, where it's a widening one, where you have somebody that's working with you that's like, oh, okay, well, you were doing that and that, well, go do that. And wait, you were running into these boundaries or these fears, or you're holding yourself back with that. How can I help you get through that? Not, well, you don't need to worry about that anymore because now you're with me. It's like, how can I expand that? How can I be a platform for you expanding your life, not an avenue of how to narrow it down to fit into what I need you to fit into? And so I would love to, I've done so much exploring with the way it is. I'm really at the place of wanting to explore what's possible.
Yeah, so you've been asking people what intimacy means to them.
Right.
So now the next thing you're asking them, what would it be to have a relationship that's expansive experience?
It's expansive. One that did not
I
have...
would love that, actually.
Would you? Okay, cool. I'll definitely make you a part of it. I'm thinking about even putting together a group to kind of make it an ongoing thing and kind of handpicking people that are like ready to make that journey of what does a completely free, intimate experience look like?
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
We all came from our own baggage of our mind-identified, narrowing, rule-based, normal, focused, so it's like...
And it's also, I think, if it hasn't been natural for you, how do you make it natural to not have rules and boundaries? Because we live in a society with rules and boundaries. Like everywhere you go, there's housekeeping rules, what you can and cannot do.
Right.
Everywhere we go.
Right. It's true.
And that's okay for certain things, right? Obviously, we all have to get along. But when it comes to how you live your life on a day-to-day basis, how do you actually throw the rules out?
Right. And honestly, you bring up a big topic, and most of the rules that really clamp us down are rules, particularly rules based on our relationship map. Like what we've been taught is the book of how love looks, and this is the way it looks, and this is like check chapter 8. This is what you're supposed to do here, and the book is not reality, but we treat the book like it's reality. But the book's just a book that we got filled with all this information that we haven't really examined.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is a good segue to your book.
Okay.
So let's talk about now you wrote a whole book, or you're in the middle of writing a book?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of editing a book, and I'm also in the process of writing a book.
So you have 2 books.
2 books, yeah.
Okay,
And
the one you're editing.
The one I'm editing is called Life Now.
Okay.
And it shares a personal experience of my own journey, just for the sake of trying to talk about the process of life. Because a couple things that I would say are key to it is, one, that we get taught that we find fulfillment and happiness in life through the content of life. We find the right career, we find the right relationship, we find the right living situation. Like if we do these things and get this right content, then we'll be happy and fulfilled, and and all that. And I would say that the content is irrelevant. That the point of life is joy, and joy is experienced in the moment, and it's experienced in the process of life, not in the content of life. So it's not what we're doing, it's how we're doing it. And it also explores the fact of that there seems to be a ubiquitous pattern. Ubiquitous, which means all pervasive.
Okay.
Everywhere.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
I'm going to have a dictionary next time.
Yeah.
No, just
there seems to be a pattern that we all share, that at some point at a very early age, very young age, we get a message of brokenness, of flawedness, of not enough, of unlovable. Okay. And there's an event or series of events that happen to us at a young age, some of them very dramatic, some of them on paper less dramatic, but to our small child minds, they were very dramatic. And it happens and it creates this message, like my message was that I'm evil, wrong, and different. Okay. So I ran around all my life thinking I'm an evil monster that's going to be discovered at any moment. So needless to say, I'm going to hide from that, right? Mm-hmm. And So that happens at a young age, and that cements in during our early ages, gets just driven in.
Yeah.
There's a book out there that's called There's Nothing Wrong With You that just really drives home the point of how strong those messages are.
And who's that by?
I wish I could remember.
Well,
She's
we'll add it on the intro.
Okay.
Or the end, we'll add it. So nothing's
good.
wrong
I'll look
with
at,
you.
There's nothing wrong with you. And it's a female. She's like a Buddhist teacher or something. But I'll get that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Okay. And it really drives home how strong those messages are. Then in our adolescence, we create a idea of how we're going to overcome those flaws. We come up with a formula of how we're going to win, like how we're going to overcome it.
Be perfect.
Yes, exactly.
Perfect.
Right. That's one. That's an example of one.
And it's exhausting.
Yes. Okay. And we think we're going to fix ourselves through this action plan, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then our adult life has a tendency to spiral in these repeating patterns of trying to play out that formula from our adolescence. Okay. Mm-hmm. The thing is, one, it's all mind identified. It's all based on mind because it says we need to do in order to be. And I say that all of our doing comes from our being. One state of being does not lead to another. We can't anxiously and fear-ridden and dramatically drive ourselves to happiness and self-content. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or contentment. Like we can't get to that. It's like alignment first and then action. So it's be leads to doing, and it already does. All of our doing is an example of how we're being. And we think we're going to overcome that. So there's this pattern of trying to create that. And it doesn't work. It's always a dangling carrot. We just like, if I could just get over this. And our mind can't ever let us actually achieve it because then we'd find out that it doesn't work. And it can't have us give up on it. So it's got to have it just dangling right at the edge of our psyche all the time. Mm-hmm. And my whole thing is just be here now. Like it's just be in what's real now. You're whole, complete, and perfect. The only thing wrong with any of us is that we think something's wrong with us. Mm-hmm. And so it's about observing and accepting the mind, not letting it drive our lives, finding our intuition and power. And that there's a pattern of life that we've been taught that life happens and then we have feelings based on what happened. Okay. And then the responsible thing that we get taught is then you have a choice based on what our feelings are to make a choice of it. But we think, and people that are less responsible play victim to that and say, well, I had no choice. The less choice this whole experience of life is about making choice. That's the most profound part of this human existence is the power of choice. And when we don't think we have choices, which is an illusion because we always do, then it makes for a very narrow experience. And this pattern of life happens, we have feelings based on what happened, then we have a choice, like that person made me angry, and I can choose to hit them or I can choose to deal, like, like that. The thing is that there's actually another step in there. Life happens, and then we have a story about what it means. And then our feelings are based on the story, not on what actually happened.
Right.
And then we have choices with that. Mm-hmm. And denying our feelings don't ever work. And by looking through the story that's led to the feelings, we can start to see the made-up story that's going on in our head.
Right.
And that's where the empowerment comes from. And it's not finding out where the story's wrong. It's just observing and accepting it for what it is. Because here's the thing. People say, well, I don't want to accept that because I don't like it. Okay? Not liking it and resisting it actually strengthens the story as it is. Acceptance is change. Mm-hmm. If you want something to change, accept it for exactly what it is. So that's what that book's about, and just a very personal story about that. And then the other one.
And when is that? Is it going to be on Amazon? You already have a publisher just going through edits?
No, I'm going to self-publish that.
Oh, self-publish. I don't know. See, I should probably learn all this stuff. But so how do you sell it on Amazon?
That would be where I would probably start. And
when do you think it'll be ready?
That's a great question.
Okay, well, you can let me know.
Okay. We can add that on.
Yeah, okay. And then your second book that you're in the middle of writing.
Yes, it is called Fierce Love.
Oh yeah, fierce love. We talked about
Yeah,
that.
and that's kind of the expansive of the whole radical
Expansive relationships, not narrowing.
Right, exactly.
Which we talked a lot about.
Intimacy based on acceptance instead of attachment.
Right.
Attachment is actually in the way of intimacy. Acceptance is the portal.
So the one thing we probably have to wrap up, but I do want to get a little background because you're writing books. So is all of your writing based on your research, your own experiences,
both?
Okay. Yeah.
These topics have always driven me. So like most of the reading and research and stuff that I've done my entire life has been just naturally drawn to these two things.
Yeah.
And then my own battle of my own expression of thinking I was wrong and trying to fix it.
How long have you think you've been researching or reading on these topics?
Definitely at least since I've been sober, which has been 27 years now. Because that's when I really started to try to explore it. Now, I spent times during that time trying to fix myself. I went to support groups, tried to do it. I tried to go to therapy to like make me monogamous. Tried to fix it.
Yeah.
And so went from one extreme to the other. Because like I said, when I first got sober, I had a tendency to think, oh, okay, well, all those behaviors were because they were acted out in a bad way, the sexuality behind them must also be bad. And it's the trying to hold it back that actually creates a problem, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And so it's been a very personal, very emotional journey of my own growth to it, and along with that, it just like I just eat books up that cover these topics, and the whole thing about the whole really looking at expansive relationships. There's not that much out there. The stuff about the process of life and finding your true self and coming from within, that like there's been thousands of years of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with you on the whole expansive relationship. I mean, think about networking, right? I mean, the whole idea of network marketing or building client relationships is all about the networking and growing your business. So that's the whole point of networking is because that person knows at least 100 people, right?
Right.
So the idea is that if you do have an intimate connection or a fierce relationship with somebody, it does expand your world,
right,
to some possibilities or things you've never known. That's why we are in relationships, because we want those people that grow us and stretch us. I guess that's for me. That's why.
That's right.
I like for when we met, for meeting with you helps me continue down my journey, because like I said, there's days I just want to be like, maybe now I can just be what Willie wants.
Right.
Now that I feel good and I know I'm a sugar addict, but part of me knew that that's not the case, and I know that I don't know where this journey is leading me, and I don't know, which is scary. It's
scary, and I don't know is a very powerful place to come from.
Mm-hmm. And to be uncomfortable, like, it's great to be uncomfortable, Becca.
That's right. That's right. In fact, that whole observe and accept pathway that I talk about in my first book and all of that, which is just my voice on something that's been said many times over, is the two dynamics that keep us from that is, one, our relationship with discomfort. Because to just sit with it and feel it and lean through the story, like, is super fucking uncomfortable. As a matter of fact, the discomfort is how we know we're onto something. Like, when I'm uncomfortable, it's like, oh, I must be onto something. Well, if our relationship with discomfort is something's wrong and I've got to get back to comfort as fast as possible, there's no possible way to walk through this process or to dance in the process. I like to think of life as a dance, not a journey, because there's nowhere to get. There's no plateau. There's nowhere to arrive. There's only here and now.
Right.
And the second thing that keeps us from just being able to do this dance in the moment of observing, accepting, and letting it be what it is and existing in the moment is experiencing the moment, is this lifetime of practice of treating everything like a problem that needs to be sought out, hunted down, destroyed, fixed, taken care of, like that whole pattern, because there's nothing broken. Mm-hmm. And so a willingness to see discomfort as an opportunity and understanding that there's nothing to do or fix, just let it be, is foundational.
Yes, I love all the stuff that you say. It always hits home, and I always think about it a lot, even after we've talked. So that's why I wanted you to be a guest. I'm going to try to wrap up.
Okay.
Karen was going to come back because I'm still learning on how to wrap up. But
okay.
Anything else you want to say? Like, where do you have a website yet? Where people can find you?
Yeah, the only the website I just got is fierce-love.com. So I'll be working on putting information on that right away, especially now that we've done this.
I'm making you uncomfortable. Get it out.
That's right. You're pushing me. It's awesome.
Well, good. I'm glad I can stretch you.
It's awesome. I also have if you want for some entertaining reading, I have a website called, and you can actually reach me this way too. I have a website out there that's got some content on it that's called monogamydisorder.com.
Okay, monogamydisorder.com.
Right.
I'm going to go check it out for sure.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate you coming today, talking, listening through my blubbery a little bit.
Yeah, that was awesome. I'm honored. Thank you.
I know we're going to have another conversation because when you get your book out there, we're going to have a conversation about that. Just the book.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, that's
All right.
good. And I'll send that to you.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
All right. We'll wrap this up.
Why don't you get the hell out of here?
So who's wrong? I'm nauseated with love songs. Put your bra back on. If we're done, I'll meet another one. Fighting with two loves and no glove. No time to discuss when I'm on the run. 20,000 more come. Women got their hands up. No man in dancing. So add up your chances. Equal up your answers. I could find another woman. A dime to a dozen. It's really nothing to ride on the sunny side. Riding through the Cali streets. City she ain't never seen. No time for jealousy. Those problems get dropped off at the bus stop. Relay to friends from LA where names can be changed from Brenda to Linda. Listen.
It's not about you, 'cause I can find another, someone who can love me just like you, girl. It's not about you, 'cause I can find another, someone who can love me just like you, girl. It's not about you, 'cause I can find another, someone who can love me just like you, girl. It's not about you, 'cause I can find another, someone who can love me just like you.
Baby, be delicate. I know you can handle it. No need to be sensitive. Tell me, are you feeling this? If so, it's common. Leaving is also an option if you choose, but then you lose a good do. So choose your next move. Get in tune to my groove, into a better move, and do what grown-ups like to do. Midnight desserts, feel that right there. Next day in church, even God won't forgive what we just did. Make you feel good all over again. It's a twist if you think you're the only chick riding in my whip. Girl, keep it real. Never forget the games you used to play on my mind. I could find 99 more dimes in a little amount of time. Baby, don't cry. Just move to the back of the line.
Girl, it's not about you, 'cause I can find another, someone who can love me just like you, girl. It's not about you, 'cause I can find another, someone who can love me just like you, girl. It's not about you. It's way too many girls to have just one. You play too many games and now I'm done, 'cause you didn't love me, girl. It's not about you, 'cause even when I gave you all my heart, all you did was tear my love apart. And it ain't about you, girl. It's not about you, 'cause I can can find another, someone who can love me just like you. Girl, it's not about you, 'cause I can find another, someone who can love me just like you. Oh yeah, just like you. Oh yeah, just like. Girl, it's not about you, 'cause I can find another, someone who can love me